So I think that's the procedure that we were going to have. So let's start with the first 15-minute talk by Marit Haltunen. She's the coordinator of the 3CO project. So the floor is yours, Marit. Please share your presentation.
Also on my behalf, welcome you all to this webinar. I'm Marit Haltunen from VTT, Technical Research Center of Finland, and I'm the coordinator in 3CO project, of which I'm going to give you a short overview right now. So what is 3CO all about? Well, the abbreviation 3CO, it comes from the sentence concise consumer communication through robust labels for bio-based systems. So at its simplest, what we are aiming to do, we are aiming to support the consumers to make more sustainable buying decision by communicating with various kinds of labels and certification schemes to them. Let's take a more in-depth look at our goals in a while, but just to make it clear where are we now standing is that we started in the February last year, and we are now running about halfway of this project. So the project will run until the beginning of 2025. And we do have partners from 7 different countries. We have Utrecht University and University of Warsaw. Then we have ECHOS, Ecologic, ENIT, BTG, ISEAL and Nova, and then us, VTT. And here in the map, you can also see where are we located. Okay, but then if we take a look at the big picture behind 3CO and 3CO's goals, we have recognized that there is a major challenge of how to unlock the full potential of the bioeconomy and industrial bio-based products. So in 3CO, we are trying to solve this challenge by supporting the consumers, as we think that is one of the keys in solving this big issue, big question behind that. So as I already previously stated, we are trying to solve how we can support the consumers' purchasing decisions to be more sustainable. And that we are trying to do by utilizing labels and certification schemes. And to be able to reach that goal and to solve that challenge, we think that we need to consider the whole value chain. And we need to look at the viewpoint of all the stakeholders in that value chain when we are aiming to develop the LCS to be more informative, communicative, and supportive for consumers' needs. And to be more specific, you can see 3CO goals here. So how are we going to solve this challenge and reach our goals? So we are aiming to develop a framework that really includes clear and actionable guidelines for label owners and to develop guidelines for label owners, label developers that they can utilize while aiming to develop the labels to better suit the consumer needs. And we are also developing a digital solutions that support the consumer buying decisions. And of course, we need to put forward policy recommendations on deploying social measures, and we are also aiming to affect on policymakers. And through these goals, we really believe that we will enable and support consumers to make more sustainable and environmental friendly purchasing choices. To be more specific, what do our actions actually include? During the first half of the project, we started by selecting 10 industrial bio-based value chains, which we will be investigating and are investigating during the duration of the project. And those we will concentrate on. They are textiles, they include textiles, beauty care, household goods, housing, and bio-based plastic toys. And then we also selected 25 label and certification schemes in these value chains that are currently used, which will be in our further investigation during this project. We are also investigating the affordability and economics of LCAs, about it, what are the costs versus benefits for the industry to utilize these various kind of labels. And of course, we also are evaluating the effectiveness the existing labels and certification schemes. And we are also looking at the social innovation and try to provide some recommendation on social measures to better support the decision-making process and to understand the reasons behind that. And as I mentioned, we are already currently started to develop digital solutions and have had our first mock-ups ready just a while ago. And then the impact we are aiming at with all these different actions that I have briefly overviewed here. We hope that the bio-based products value chains will be more transparent and consumer will be better informed about the sustainability about these products. And of course, we hope that we will have better understanding on the metrics on environmental, social and economical value that these bio-based products generate. And as I mentioned, we hope to also have a wider impact, and hopefully we will be able to formulate some innovative governance models to support the whole value chain and whole industries in that sense. And just to get a bit closer to practice, that is what we actually doing. So we are working in 7 various work packages and for the and they are of course overlapping and supporting each other's, but the work I described in the previous slides is basically crystallized in this picture. So this is how we are actually working in Trico. If you are interested to find out more, please visit our web pages at tricoproject.eu and also subscribe our newsletter so you will get topical information every 1 or 2 months. And in case of any questions, do like Ange suggested and put your question in the Q&A box. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Marit. That was a really nice talk. I saw that already one question was asked, so people are active. And before we start with the next presentation by Pedro, he's the coordinator of the bioresearch project. I would also suggest everybody who's listening here to enter our LinkedIn group on certification. I will put a link to this group in the chat in a minute. But now please go ahead, Pedro. I'm looking forward to your talk.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Do you see the screen?
Yes, everything.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for the invitation first. We are the coordinators of the Bioresearch project. It's coordinated by Aqua Technology Center located in the northwest side of Spain. I'm going to, okay. This is a brief overview of the for today's presentation, and we are going to start with a little of background of the project. So the rationale and the challenges related to the use of the biomasses or biowaste as feedstocks. So one of the challenges that the feedstocks must face is that they are mainly restricted to the specific industries with low added value in the market. Also, it's necessary to address this transition from the bio-based economy, taking into account other challenges related to the biomasses, such as the seasonality, composition, spatial distribution, etc. And also, we should pay attention to that the biomasses and biowastes are not valorized as feedstocks currently. So in many cases, they are landfilled or are used for waste to energy purposes. Another challenge is the low availability or reliability of data regarding traceability of biomasses from each origin up to the final destination. There are not sustainable indicators with homogeneous criteria in order to address, in order to evaluate the environmental performance or sustainability of these biomasses. And also, very important is that the current biomass certification schemes are targeting other uses for biomasses, mainly focused on food or energy purposes. So having in mind all these challenges, comes up the project Biological Resource Certification Schemes, or Bioresearch. Bioresearch is a European Horizon Europe funded project that aims to ensure the environmental performance and traceability of the biological feedstocks used by the bio-based industries, deploying guidelines to enhance the current certification schemes. It should be noted that the food, feed, or energy uses of these biomasses are excluded from the scope of the project. The project started in September 2022 and will end in August 2025. So that means that the project has a duration of 36 months. We have a budget of 5 million euros. It's an innovation action, and the project implies 4 demonstrative sites. Regarding the consortium and the participants in the project, up to 16 partners are involved in the project, coming from 7 different countries, such as Italy, Greece, Sweden, Germany, United Kingdom, France, and Spain, and with partners with different profiles and backgrounds, having from universities and technological centers, private companies and business clusters, and standardization, certification, and communication bodies. The overall goal of the project is to complement the current certification schemes and enhance bio-based circular systems by promoting the sustainability and trade of resources, having 6 specific objectives. The first one is the elaboration of a mapping of the current European biomass flows. The second specific objective is the development of a multidimensional impact assessment and traceability framework in order to evaluate the biological resource supply chains. The third specific objective is the integration of this environment and traceability assessment framework into an established biological resource certification scheme. The fourth specific objective is the validation of this developed impact assessment framework into the 4 case studies. These 4 case studies, which we delve in the coming slides, represent the main incipient bio-based supply chains in Europe. Also, the 5 specific objectives is the development of a bioreserve ICT tool, which will provide a functional environment to enable the track and traceability intensification schemes, and also the analytical exploitation of biomass data. And finally, the last specific objective is the maximization of the project results involving different target users, such as producers or biomasses, consumers or biomasses, policymakers, and also consumers or general public. Regarding the project concept, the concept of the project is structured in 4 actions. The first action is the development of the multidimensional assessment framework for the integration of this assessment framework based on sustainability and traceability into an existing certification scheme. Also, the development of the called Bioreserve Innovation Ecosystem Living Lab, where multi-agent where the stakeholders are going to be continuously consulting in order to get valuable feedback. The development of the Bioreserve ICT tool, and also the validation of all these developments and results in the 4 case studies. Regarding the project innovations, the project brings very important or remarkable innovations in terms of the innovative methodologies, approaches, and tools in the fields of sustainability and track and traceability of biomasses. Also, innovations in terms of producing a novel certification scheme that is going to be take into account the current gaps in order to certify the biological feedstocks. The development of an innovative ICT tool, taking into account the provision of information to different stakeholders all over the supply chain, and also the provision of a decision support system. And finally, as a cross-cutting innovation, is the development of this ecosystem environment for the co-creation, taking into account the involvement of stakeholders and also the development of this bioreserve stakeholder platform. Regarding the methodology, the project implies 3 phases. The first phase implies the collection of data and knowledge regarding of the biomass flows in the value chain at European level. Within this collection of data is going to be determined and identify the main gaps, barriers, and legal requirements related to the use of these biomasses of feedstocks. Then the second phase should develop, are going to develop these methodologies that are going to assure the traceability and environmental performance of biomasses. And the third phase consists in the adaptation of these methodologies into an existing certification scheme, and also the creation of this digital platform that will join the different actors along the supply chain of the biomasses, from the producer to the consumers and also the general public. And as a cross-cutting activity, we have this continuous consulting to the stakeholders and the communication activities in order to obtain this valuable feedback related to the project intermediate and results, and also the testing and validation of all the methodologies in the 4 case studies. Delving into the 4 case studies, we have 4 case studies. The case study one is located here in Spain, in the region of Galicia, and it's focused on seawater sludge biomass and also canning industry and seafood waste. Then the second phase case study is located in the region of Lombardia in Italy, and is focused on organic fraction of municipal solid waste, seawater sludge again, agro waste, and non-hazardous liquid organic waste. The third case study is located in the region of Central Macedonia in Greece, and is focused on agri-food and cereal, crop byproducts, and other crop side streams waste. And finally, the 4th case study, located in the region of Västernorrland in Sweden, is focused on the forest industry subproducts. Regarding the project impacts or the impact pathway of the project, it starts from the most immediately results derived from the project. That means from this elaboration of the drivers, barriers, and all these issues that are hindering the use of these biological resources by the bio-based industry. Then we have the creation of this protocol to consult and to interact directly with the stakeholders, the development of this methodology for the analysis of the sustainability and traceability of the biomasses, the elaboration of a standardization roadmap, the building of this bioreserve ICT tool, and finally, the validation of all these methodologies and product results in the 4 case studies. Then, as a direct outcome from the project, we have the definition of new methodologies and indicators for the sustainability and track and traceability assessment of biological feedstocks, the integration of these methodologies or frameworks into an existing certification scheme, and the development of this novel digital tool that serves as a platform for certifiers, producers, traders, and consumers to obtain reliable data regarding the feedstocks. And finally, as the main impacts derived from the project, we have the environmental impact reduction of the biological resources, the creation of new services and business models, that means in the fields of certification and consultancy services, the increasing of the social acceptance and promotion of the European Union taxonomy, and finally the cost reduction, because it's expected that the current paradigm where the producer of biomasses is paying for the final treatment of these biomasses are shifting from this scenario to a new scenario where they are going to be paid for these biomasses. And as the main impact of the project is the promotion of the use of biological resource by the bio-based industry in order to attain high added value products. Regarding the current project progress of the project, we are halfway the project. We are in the middle of the project. So we already obtained this mapping of the biological feedstocks at European level, identifying the main multidimensional barriers. We also identify the preliminary draft of principles, criteria, and circularity indicators for the sustainability framework. It was also obtained the preliminary track and trace blueprint and the automatic data acquisition system for the track and traceability of the biomasses. It was established the stakeholders platform for the active involvement of the stakeholders. It was identified the preliminary gap analysis and mapping of the certification schemes. It was established the reference architecture and data model for the bioreserve information and communication tool. And also it was established the material flow diagram, system limits, and input-output data for the case studies. Here in this slide, a little overview of these multidimensional barriers that were identified for the use of the bio-based feedstocks by the bio-based industries, were classified in environmental, legal, economic, social, and technical barriers. And in the field or in the environmental barriers, we identify the lack of environmental assessment tools as a barrier to implement or to deploy the use of these biomasses. In the legal field, we found that the lack of nationwide level and legal requirements framework is a barrier that hinder the use of these biomasses, and also the lack of certification schemes, for instance. In terms of economic issues, the higher cost related to the management of biomasses is a problem in order to use these biomasses by the bio-based industry, and also the additional transportation costs of these biomasses. And these are an example of all the potential or the multidimensional barriers that were identified in these first stages of the project. Regarding the future, in the coming months, it's going to be identify the environmental and circularity criteria and development of circularity indicators for the sustainability framework. So it's expected to finish the sustainability framework in the coming months. The creation of the track and traceability framework and the design of and build of the track and trace software to monitor the flow of biological feedstocks all over the supply chain. Is also to be finished the integration of these both frameworks, the track and traceability and environmental, into a current biological resource certification scheme. Is going to be finished the development of the ICT tool and the implementation of the addition support system. And we are currently validating, and is going to be finished the validation of all these methodologies and results in the 4 case studies, and also the definition of the final exploitation plan of the results of the project. And that's all. We will be waiting for your questions to be answered at the end of the session.
Exactly. Thank you, Pedro, for this nice talk. So again, to everybody, please, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box, not in the chat, and refer the questions to the respective speaker. Also for BioResearch, we can say that they, of course, have their own website. You can register for the newsletter there. And BioResearch has also its own LinkedIn group, which I will put in the chat in a minute. So thank you to the first 2 speakers. Now we come to the third speaker of the session. This is Gülşah Yılan. She is a coordinator of the project SUSTRAC. So the stage is yours. Thank you.
You just share the screen in the presentation mode. Oh. I guess now you see it in the presentation mode. All right.
Exactly.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I also want to start with thanking the organization of this nice webinar, the series of webinars, in fact, and also thank you for the participation for all. And this is Gülşah Yılan from Unitaria Sapienza, University of Rome. We are the coordinators of this SUSTRAC project, which I will be giving a brief introduction first, and then some of the results that we collected during the course of action. And SUSTRAC reads as supporting the identification of policy priorities and recommendations for designing a sustainable track towards circular bio-based systems. We are running for a 3-year coordination and support action project. Now we are halfway done, so we are in the second part of our project. And to give you a bit of the idea of what we are working on is in a broader sense, apart from just the certification schemes or labels, I think this will be somehow complementary and supportive of the topics that we have been hearing today and for the, of course, upcoming presentations. So we have a broader scope to understand the transition from linear fossil-based systems to circular and bio-based systems in order to understand what could be the opportunities for reconciling sustainable long-term growth with environmental protection. But at the same time, we need solid ways to understand the impacts, either environmental, social, or economic impacts of the linear economy, as well as the potential improvements when we manage to steer this transition in the circular bio-based route. So we are trying to identify the policy priorities in the first place and to support the policymakers to develop sustainable pathways for replacing the conventional fossil-based raw materials or resources of any kind. And at the same time, we are aiming to contribute to achieving European Green Deal objectives, or even in a broader sense, all these sustainability objectives. And I want to encourage all the participants to visit our website and also social media profiles. And if you find it interesting for you, you can even subscribe for our newsletter or join as a stakeholder. That would be much appreciated. Just another snapshot about the main and specific objectives. As you could guess from the abstract, now we have two main objectives: to provide knowledge and tools for monitoring and assessing the impact. So this is going to be the digital part that we are working on to create this monitoring framework and even a dashboard. And of course, at the same time, we aim to identify policy priorities and policy recommendations to promote this transition. So we have a double goal in this project as the main objectives. And of course, to reach these goals, we have 5 specific objectives, which are aligned with the work packages, so that you can assume these specific objectives are aiming a specific work package at the same time. So we started with the identification, assessing, and prioritizing the economic, environmental, and social limits and the barriers of the linear and circular systems after a comprehensive gray literature review. And then we are still working on the development of the knowledge and tools for this monitoring framework, which will be the output of our project at the end of the course. And we are also assessing the impacts of this sustainable transition via adopting a case study approach, which I will go into detail in a bit. And we are also running, creating, simulating, and interpreting a variety of scenarios. So there is this system dynamic modeling approach in order to reflect the bigger scope of our project, so that will be nationwide or European-wide simulations. And finally, of course, all these efforts will lead to identify policy priorities, to define actionable knowledge, and provide recommendations for policymakers. And I would also like to list the case studies that we selected for our project. We are focusing on 4 main sectors of interest, which are calling for an urgent shift from linear to circular models. So these are construction, textile, chemicals, and plastics. So if any of the participants are feeling closer to one of these case studies, we are now running the case study analysis part. So it would be well appreciated if you want to have a participate, if you want to participate, if you want to contribute to these case studies. And some results from the project outputs. I would like to start with the definition of circular bio-based economy in our perspective. So as you might be aware of now, there are, I think, at least or almost 200 definitions of circular bio-based economy, bioeconomy. So there is a lot of information in the literature. So we tried to interpret the definition, which is still a working definition, by the way, from our perspective, in order to put the emphasis, in order to put the focus in the right spot. Of course, we have the overarching aim of sustainable development goals, but our project, our circular bio-based economy, is not contributing fully to all these sustainable development goals. So we have our own objectives, such as climate protection, competitiveness and job creation, supply security, sustainable resource management, and food security. And in order to reach these objectives, we are adopting some principles such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, decoupling the economic growth from resource use, and of course, using efficiently that materials or energy or whatever you might need in order to run your activities. And we are focusing on some means like use resources differently, that 9R principles, cascading use of all the materials or energy, and also use different resources where we are making reference to using biomass, waste, residue, or byproducts. And here, in order to understand the policy actions, we are examining, investigating some instruments like quotas, permits, labels, which we have been hearing today, and also taxes. And we are also considering some policy strategies and action plans like bioeconomy strategy, circular economy action plan, and so on. And after this definition of circular bio-based economy from Sustrack's point of view, I would like to share some results which will somehow overlap with Pedro's identified barriers, I think. So now we finished our first work package, which included the identification of barriers for this transition. So we started with a comprehensive gray literature review where we identified almost 200 barriers. And then we applied a cutoff criteria to organize a co-creation workshop to collect the stakeholder input in order to validate the barriers that we identified from the gray literature. And after the workshop analysis, we had some one-to-one interviews to go deeper if these barriers could be applicable for the sectors of interest. And after the interviews, we created a survey in order to prioritize the most important barriers across sectors or in the overall sense. And for the survey, we reached 31 final barriers which are hindering this transition from happening. And at the end, we collected 31 barriers, as I said, and 10 of them were belonging to the governance cluster. So we practically use different clusters in order to identify what would be the most important aspects for decision making or for intervening this process of transitioning. So the governance has the highest number of barriers, followed by economic, structural, cultural, environmental, and technical barriers. And then we run an analytical hierarchy process and analytical network process in order to prioritize, in order to understand how the stakeholders are prioritizing these set of barriers. And if we just compare the clusters, we see that still the economic cluster has the highest weight compared to the others. And it is just after that one, we have the governance barriers, followed by environmental, technical, structural, and cultural barriers. So this is the weight distribution of importance, in other words. And if we check the most important barriers across clusters, we see that the economic barrier is the weak cost competitiveness. So bio-based products are still not competitive from a financial point of view with fossil-based ingredients, materials, or products. From an environmental point of view, we saw that the lack of harmonized methods for environmental, climate, and sustainability impact assessment is still the most important barrier. And the cultural cluster, which significantly overlaps with all the presentations that we have seen today, is the consumers' confusion and lack of trust due to generic sustainability claims and the proliferation of certification schemes and labels. And from the governance, from a governance point of view, we see that the competing political interest with fossil-based industries is the most important barrier, followed by the structural lack of value chain stakeholder collaboration, where we are also putting emphasis on these stakeholder involvement activities with research and combining the research with the industry practices. And finally, the technical barrier, which was identified as the most important, was incompatible and or insufficient infrastructure capacity for end-of-life product collection, storage, and management. And just after this analysis, we also ran analytical network process, because when we identified some barriers across clusters, it was not very easy to put just one barrier under one cluster. You cannot easily guess that they are interconnected and they are influencing each other significantly. So we asked also these interviewees the question, what would be, in your case, from your point of view, what would be the most influential barriers to the transition across clusters? So we saw that the governance barriers have a wider impact, such as competing political interests, fragmented regulatory framework across Europe, and regulatory complexities and lack of support for the transition at the governmental level, and also social and technical lock-ins to the current linear system was identified as one of the main barriers, one of the high influential barriers to this transition. And I would also like to bring your attention to a publication that we have just published, a paper that we have just published in order to get a better understanding of this full list of barriers to transition. You can have a look if you are interested. We are focusing on different sectors here across different clusters and adopting an industrial perspective, hoping that we will be able to provide better policy actions and actionable knowledge at the end of our project in order to support this transition. And that will be all from my side. Thank you again for your attention. I will be waiting for the questions.
Thank you, Gülşah. That was, again, a very nice presentation. So I see that people are using the Q&A box. That's great. Please don't hesitate to ask your questions now, but only in the Q&A box. Thank you. So the next speakers will be three persons. Those are Costanza Rossi, I'm sorry for my lack of pronunciation ability, Luana Ladou and Iris Vural-Gürsel, and they are from three different projects. Those are Harmonita, Star for BBS, and SASCERT for Biobased. They are funded under the same call and thus clustered, and they they clustered in the bio-based third cluster, which they will present now. So with this, I would like to hand over to the next speakers. Thank you. And you will need to put your presentation.
Yes, and now I will put it in presentation mode. Yes, thank you, Anke, for the introduction. So indeed, we are presenting together as a cluster. So this is the bio-based cert cluster, working on robust and effective sustainable certification for bio-based system. In this presentation, we will be introducing this cluster, its activities, especially focusing on our joint bio-based cert monitoring system. So I'm Iris Vural-Gürsel. I'm from Wageningen Research. I'm the coordinator of the SASCERT for Biobased project. I'm joined together in this presentation with Luana Ladou, who is coordinator of STAR for BBS from TU Berlin, and Costanza Rossi, coordinator Harmonita from SQ Consult. So what we like to present today is that I will be introducing our cluster and its activities. And also we will be showing a quick overview from the individual projects involved, the consortiums and the concepts of them. Then Luana will present our bio-based site monitoring system, and followed by Constanza providing overview of the policy priorities and recommendations, and some news about our upcoming events. First, I'd like to start by giving a bit of background for our projects. So as you know, several international and EU sustainability standards have been developed and applied for biological feedstocks and bio-based products through voluntary certification schemes and labels. They serve as powerful instruments to assess the sustainability of bio-based products. However, we see their rapid proliferation led to questioning their effectiveness and robustness. And to be able to ensure that the transition to circular bio-based systems occurs sustainably, it is essential to be able to assess the performance of these tools. And this is where our cluster, the bio-based art cluster, come into play. So who are we? So we are a cluster of 3 Horizon Europe projects funded under the same call. So this is the Zero Pollution 0107 call. We all started in mid 2022, and it will run for 3 years, so ending at mid 25. So the individual projects are SUSART for bio-based, STAR for BBS, and Harmonitor. And all of us have the objective to assess the effectiveness and robustness of international and EU sustainable certification schemes and labels applicable to bio-based systems. So similar to what was presented before, for us also food, feed, and energy are outside of scope. So we focus on bio-based products and also biological feedstocks that are targeted for these products. So I will now move on to giving a short overview of SUSART for bio-based project, which I am the coordinator. So we are joined by 5 partners. The Wageningen Research, it's a research institute looking at application-oriented and field-based research in the domain of healthy food and living environment. Here we are together as 2 institutes, Wageningen Food and Bio-based Research, which I am part of, as well as Wageningen Economic Research. Additionally, we have CIRSE from Spain. This research institute specialized in innovation and sustainable development solutions. We have WIDE, that is our dissemination and communication experts. We have ECHOS, NGO, advocating for environmental friendly standards, policies, and laws. And finally, Control Union, a certification body from Germany that is providing services around sustainability of biomass supply chains. I would also like to ask you to join our network of interest. So SUSART for Bio-based Network of Interest has biannual webinars where we also invite speakers and present progress on our project. Then I would like to give a quick overview of the concept of our project. We started by reviewing and analyzing existing schemes and labels. And as you see, this considers the schemes that are targeted for bio-based products, such as RSP, ISCC, and also that are for feedstock, for agriculture systems, for example, RSP or Bon Sucre, and for wood, such as FSC, PFC. And we also consider the eco-labels, such as the Blue Angel, EU eco-label, and Nordic Swan. And additionally, we'll look at global trade flow analysis and trying to distinguish between certified and uncertified flows. And that we do in terms of 6 sectors that are relevant for the bio-based industry. So that are textiles, woodworking, construction, biochemicals, plastics, and pulp and paper. Then at the heart of our project is the development of the monitoring system that we are doing jointly with our sister projects. And for that purpose, we have been reviewing existing guidelines and benchmarking tools such as the WWF CAT tool, SAFA from FAO, ITC standard maps, and ICL guidelines. And this has resulted in defining principles, criteria, and indicators at a system content and outcome level of our monitoring system that would like to assess the robustness, effectiveness, and comprehensiveness of existing certification schemes and labels. And we are currently testing our system on these schemes and to be able to evaluate them and also to test our system to be able to improve it further. Additionally, we have a work package dedicated to cost and benefit assessment. The interesting part of it is that we are developing a methodology to internalize the externality, so to bring in monetary terms the social and environmental costs and benefits, and to be able to assess the feasibility of adoption of certification schemes in selected case studies. Finally, with all this developed knowledge, we would like to derive recommendations to key target groups, and for that we defined 4 stakeholders that are policymakers, industry, sustainable system actors, and a rural bioeconomy. And at our website, you can find further information about our project, our deliverables that are publicly available, and our newsletter. And with that, I would now give the floor to Luana to present the STAR for BBS project.
Yeah, thank you, Iris, and thank you for the nice organization of this workshop today. My name is Luana Lado. I'm the coordinator of the BBS project, and I represent TU Berlin. So our project name means Sustainability Transition Assessment Rules for Bio-based Systems, and we started at Pulsar Set in 2022, a bit later than the other 2 projects. We started 3 months later, and we are going to end the end of August 25th. And the overall objective is to maximize the potential of certification schemes and labels applicable to bio-based products, and assessing the effectiveness and robustness and credibility. Our consortium includes 11 partners, so we have 7 partners, including 4 universities, so TU Berlin, coordinating the project. We have Università La Sapienza of Rome involved in the feasibility study and also in the analysis of schemes and labels. Then we have the University of Athens working on the cost of benefit analysis. Then we have the University of Santiago de Compostela also working on the cost of benefit analysis. Then we have APRE as a communication partner. We have nova-Institut doing all the assessment of the biomass flows. And then we have 4 associated partners. Those are IZEA, is an umbrella organization of credible sustainability standards. And then we have RSP as associated partners, also for the testing of the monitoring system, Better Biomass, this is also certification schemes, and we have also BAM, the German Federal Institute of Material Research and Testing. And then we have also UNI as an affiliated entity of Uniterma. You can see also our logo, our channel, we have a communication channel that you can join our network, our stakeholder group, and we can also disseminate different results of the project. Next, please. So so our project is divided in 8 work packages, and we are, since we are financed by the same call as Sustainable Bio-based and monitor many activities, they are complementary. I will say some of them overlap, but we are also, as we created the cluster, trying to build on the synergies and complement our methodology for different tasks, for example. And our project started with a review step that included the analysis of existing schemes and labels. So we identified more than 100 schemes and labels applicable to bio-based products for sustainability. Then on parallel, we are also evaluating the trade flows of biomass, bio-based products, and bio-based materials coming to Europe, and we are trying to understand what is the impact of certification of this in these trade flows. And we're doing this for specific selected trade flows. Then we have three main objectives, the 4, 5, and 6, that are working on the development of the monitoring system, including the identification of indicators that has been done, of course, in the cluster together. Also, we concentrated a lot on conceptualizing the monitoring system and developing this monitoring system that is, as Iris said, we are now currently testing. And then there is also this objective looking at the testing and applicability of the tool. We are also conducting cost and benefit analysis of specific value chains to monetize the environmental cost and also conduct a feasibility study of more credible schemes and labels. And since we are a coordination and support actions, we're doing a lot of activities to involve stakeholders, including, for example, co-creation workshops, but also other side events, and together also with sister projects. And we are providing, of course, policy recommendation for different stakeholders or different category of stakeholders. And so we are now already in the middle of the project, and we already finalized the review step, and we're working on the impact analysis and development of the tool and demonstrating the tool, and in parallel also on the cost and benefit analysis. Thank you. I will give the floor now to Costanza.
Yeah, thank you, Luana. And thank you also from my side for the invitation to this webinar. I would like to quickly introduce the HER-Monitor Consortium. And you can see that we are 9 partners. We have 3 research centers. One is DBFZ, and then we have 2 universities, University of Utrecht and Radboud University. We have 2 consultancies, SQ Consult and BTG. We have also 3 certification bodies. These are Preferred by Nature, RINA, and Agrovet. And finally, GRAS, which is sustainability tool developer. And next slide, please. Yes, thank you. For the approach, I will keep it short because it's very similar to what Luana and Iris already mentioned for the other 2 projects. But basically, we can say that there are kind of 2 sides of HER-Monitor. One is the monitoring of certification schemes and labels, and this is the bio-based cert monitoring system. And the goal is to basically increase the or improve the effectiveness and the robustness of certification schemes and labels. And then we have also an harmonization side. So we want to harmonize the certification schemes. And for this, we are jointly developing a platform where certification schemes will be able to access information and communicate to each other, and this for guaranteeing or for helping them with their continuous improvement. And next slide.
Yeah, so I will now continue with the objectives of our cluster. So we are jointly working on different activities, and all have some different objectives. So what we like to do is gain a precise picture of existing sustainable certification schemes and labels for bio-based systems. We like to get our data on global trade flows of biological resources and bio-based materials and products, differentiating between certified and uncertified flows. We are developing and testing a monitoring system to assess the effectiveness and robustness of existing CSLs. We are assessing costs and benefits from the adoption of these CSLs in industrial bio-based value chains and assessing the feasibility in selected case studies. And finally, as pointed out, it's important that we disseminate our findings as recommendations to targeted stakeholders in order to promote the adoption of the effective and robustness CSLs. So in doing so, as the cluster, we have identified certain strategic areas of collaboration. So this is coordinated by the 3 coordinators, and then we have specific groups that are working on specific topics. So this includes selection and review of CSLs, a group of experts working together from the 3 projects on the development of the bio-based cert monitoring system, similarly, another group working on trade flow analysis and another on the cost benefit and feasibility assessment. Additionally, we have also decided to join our forces in the advisory board. So we have a joint advisory board for our projects, and we are organizing joint events and organization of joint co-creation events. So also joined our forces in dissemination and communication activities. And in the following slides, Luana will present about our bio-based earth monitoring system.
Yes, thank you. So as Iris said, so we, since the beginning of the project, we decided to join efforts and build on the synergies. And one major activity is we're working together on the BMS. This is is our cluster monitoring system, and we officially applied to the EU to allow us to work together on this. And the rationale behind this is based on different factors. In particular, we wanted to reduce confusion among stakeholders, because providing 3 different monitoring systems would be overloading for the stakeholders. And so the idea was to reduce fatigue for them, also to develop a more comprehensive tool covering a wide range of bio-based sector and products, because we have now not only one consortium working on the project, but we have 3 of them working together. So we have different expertise involved with almost 25 partners. Then we also, the idea was also to increase the chances to keep alive the BMS after the end of the 3 projects, also avoiding competition among the projects. And also, of course, it's very important to build on the knowledge of and expertise of the different members of the 25 partners involved. Next, please. So basically, the monitoring system has, we have basically 2 major target audience. In particular, one of them is the EU policymakers. And so the idea of this bio-based earth monitoring system is to increase transparency for policymakers regarding the performance of schemes and labels. So as Iris said before, the problem that we are having is that we have too many schemes and labels, and we don't know if they are robust enough. So are the schemes and labels really fit for the purpose? So the idea is that this monitoring tool can help policymakers to really have an overview of the robustness of the schemes and labels applicable to bio-based products, but also provide understanding on how schemes and labels contribute to sustainability priorities. And also the idea maybe is to support the use of BMS indicators as a mechanism to fulfill a regulation, so as a co-regulation mechanism. But it's also very important as the audience certification schemes owners, because the idea is to provide the scheme owners with a system where they can identify their own gaps. So a gap analysis of the weaknesses, for example, or also the strength. And also, as Costanza said before, one of the major objectives of the 3 projects is to increase harmonization in terms of shared stability governance criteria among the schemes. Next, please. So our schemes is targeted to only to industrial bio-based value chain. So we are excluding feed, food, and fuels. And we are covering the entire value chain with different aspects of the product life cycle. And we are mostly concentrated in Europe. However, of course, we also consider the biomass coming from other European countries, also intermediate products. Next, please. This is a scheme like how our monitoring system is currently organized. So we have on the top level, you see the database. This one includes all the indicators divided in 3 major levels: system level, content level, and outcome level. And what we did is that since the beginning, we decided to have some coordinators. So each project coordinating one area. System level is coordinated by staff of EBS, so by us. The content level by staff of Biobase, and outcome level by our monitor. And of course, we have inter-project teams, different experts from different projects working in each level. And the system level is looking at criteria, for example, robustness, governance, and credibility of the schemes. How can we make sure that we can ensure this? The content level is looking at specific areas of concern for sustainability and environmental, social, and economic circularity pillars. And then the outcome level is looking at the effectiveness, really looking if what is, for example, the impact of the scheme over time, for example, so to measure, to monitor the impact. And in addition, we have also an interpretation level and also a presentation of the result level. So how can we make sure that the information or the analysis of our monitoring system can be presented to the different stakeholders, audience categories, for example, policymakers and so, etc. And we're also now discussing how to present the results. We won't have an overall score for each scheme. However, we have some graphical representation where it is possible to see really the gaps and the strengthening of selected schemes. Next, please.
Maybe Lona, just
Yes.
to add here, it's also important that while we are developing this system, we are also having some feedback mechanisms. So we are presenting this to our stakeholders. So with stakeholder engagement and feedback, we have feedback. We are also testing different CSRs with the system, and based on the findings and learnings, we're also improving and also having some pilot audits.
Yes, thank you, Iris. So just to give you an idea of the indicator for the system level, for example, we cover 4 major categories: governance and scheme management, standard setting, assurance, traceability, and claims. And for each category, we have different principles. For example, for standard setting, we look, for example, how often is the standard process, the standard revised, or do they include different category stakeholders, for example. So we have different elements that can be used to really assess the robustness from this point of view. Next, please. Regarding the content level, we are looking then at different pillars. So for environment, we have, for example, different principles: air quality, chemical use management, climate change management, and so on. For circularity, we are looking at the circular transition and circular inflows, also material, circular design and material recycling, and also responsible waste management. And then we have also the social and economic pillars. For the social pillar, we are looking at compliance with labor rights, the improved working condition, the well-being of the local communities, and also the well-being of consumers. And for the economic pillar, we are looking at economic and financial viability, fair business practices, risk management, sustainability management. Next, please. For the outcome level, so the idea is to have those indicators that can capture the impact of dedication schemes in labor. So we cannot concentrate in all the indicators included in the monitoring system, but we are selecting some of them. For example, for environmental, the climate change management. For the social, for example, some of them working condition and labor rights, for example. So we will concentrate on some of these indicators. Next, please. Just as going back to what Iris was saying, so we have a process for developing the monitoring system and implementing it. That includes, of course, initially we had like the development of the draft criteria, and the first draft of the monitoring system, also some ideas on the structure, how to communicate the results, was finalized by the end of January this year. And now we have the testing phase, the first testing phase with 3 schemes: FSC, RSB, and Nordic Swan. And this pilot test is we can say, is almost finalized. And we are now working on how to improve this scheme based on the feedback collected from the first testing of the BMS. And then we are going to start the second phase, including, we are thinking about 5 additional schemes. It's going to start in August and will last, I think, until February 25th, including also an improvement of the BMS indicators based on the feedback received on the second testing. And of course, we have different stakeholder consultation events for the future application of the BMS, and those stakeholder consultation events are already ongoing in different cooperation workshops that we organized also in the past. And we aim to have the final version of the BMS by May 25th. Thank you.
Yes, now we continue with Constanza.
Yes, thank you. Now I will tell you a little bit about policy priorities and policy recommendations that we identified. And as many of you know, of course, there are a lot of European policies that more or less directly establish some sustainability goals and requirements for bio-based value chains. However, there are still a lot of gaps in these policy targets, and these targets also tend to be quite general. And anyway, the majority of them are not legally binding. So all of this means that there is still a limited influence of the current policy landscape on the bio-based industry. Next slide, please. Yes. Based on this, and taking this as a starting point, we thought of some policy recommendations. And the first point is that it's important to set specific sustainability targets, both for bio-based materials and in general for the European bioeconomy, and also to clarify what are the expected future requirements. And this is important because then companies and also researchers and projects like ours can start to look ahead and future-proof our recommendations and for the companies, their trajectory. Once this is done, it's then, of course, important to communicate this so that manufacturers are actually aware of this, because what we've seen is that many times companies don't understand or are not sure about which policies actually apply to them, especially if they work with bio-based products. So it's important to create this awareness. And similarly, it's important to ensure that there is consistency across the sustainability requirements that apply to different biological resources and to different biological and to different sectors. And it is important to basically avoid conflicting objectives and to reduce the confusion in the market actors. And sorry, there was one last point. Yes, thank you. And the last point is that many bio-based products, or the majority of bio-based products, are not 100% made from bio-based content. So it would be important to establish some criteria for a minimum content a minimum bio-based content in the bio-based products, and of course that this content is also sustainable. Next one, please. Many of these gaps can be addressed by certification schemes and labels if they are used as co-regulation instruments, especially when it comes to improving and proving the sustainability of bio-based value chains. And this is why we think that it's particularly important to work on increasing the robustness and effectiveness of certification schemes, and also to support the collaboration among these schemes. So this is what we are trying to do with our projects. And the next one. And last but not least, these are two upcoming events we would like to show you, to invite you to. The first one will take place next week on the 13th of June in Cologne at the Renewable Materials Conference. Our group working on the global trade flows organized a workshop on the global trade flows of bio-based value chains and the role of certification. And on the 26th of June in Marseille, we organized a side event to the UBCE, where we will talk about monitoring sustainability certification schemes and labels of bio-based products. Thank you for the attention.
So thank you very much to the cluster for this very, very nice overview over your activities and results. Before we go to answer the questions, I would like to invite every participant joining the webinar today to go to the different websites of the projects. Here you can find more results. You can get an overview over events and news. You can follow the hashtags of the projects. Please join the LinkedIn groups. They are also always providing up-to-date information. And now that this is a webinar by the project 3Co, I would also like to draw your attention to a survey we are currently doing, where we are asking for your ideas on social innovations in which you might already have participated. And I will put the link in the chat, so please participate. Okay, so let's go to the questions. I will ask them. They were all put in the Q&A box, and when there's a question to one of the speakers, all other speakers are, of course, invited to also answer the question when there's something they would like to add from their project. So I will start with the first question, which goes to Marit. Here, the question is, what type of digital solutions are you working on? Is it supply chain mappings, digital passports, etc.?
Yes, thank you for the question, Therese. Actually, it's neither of them in its pure format. We are currently calling it a Trico app. And the idea is that this app provides a quick and instant access to a database of eco certifications, so that the users, while they are shopping in stores, they can scan a product or the eco label and then through the app and then get some information about each certification. Or they can also use it as a search engine, so they can search various eco labels offline and find the information they need to support their buying decision. And there will be also other kind of effects planned in this app, some gamification aspects and such, but we are just on our way, and the first mockups will be under consumer evaluation during this summer. So stay tuned for more information in case you are interested. Hope this answered your question.
Yes, so thank you. So this is a B2C, a business to consumer app providing information on labeling. I think, Pedro, that your project also has a digital solution. Would you like to say something about that too? This is a business to business thing, isn't it?
Yes, in our case, it's more focused on business to business approach. Our digital tool is, the concept of the tool is to provide environmental and traceability information for the producers and also for the consumers of these biomasses. So the potential consumer or transformation facility of this biomass will have this environmental and traceability information in order to be implemented within their product to their process, and also to aggregate this environmental information within its own environmental information. So at the end, the environmental information provided will include the supply chain from the beginning of the feedstock until the transformation of these feedstocks.
Thank you. So we have now two questions to Gülşah. The first one is, what would your recommendation be to influence the lobbying power of the petrochemical industry?
This is the $1 million question. So probably I would go for the other one first, but it's okay. So I think now this is somehow about the governance problem. So I think it is the governance level that we can maybe influence in the opposite direction of this petrochemical industry. Lobbying power of this petrochemical industry, with being more strict about transparency of their actions and what they are creating as the output, like emissions, waste, and so on. And it goes also under another topic of being innovative and renewable products, that they are considered as they have to perform perfectly. So if we are proposing an alternative, the expectation is most of the time they have to meet all the criteria of sustainability and circularity, but I think it's a bit unrealistic as well. So maybe that might be also somehow underline that this is an improvement in progress. So this is not going to replace all the environmental impacts, social impacts, but it will be a progress that we hope to steer in the right direction. But I think there is no single answer to this question, and I think it's going to be a matter of a lot of participants, a lot of complexity, and a bit of time to overcome this lobbying power.
This is true. So does anyone from the other projects have another or similar answer to this question? I think this is something that is going on as a question in our projects as well. So anyone who would like to say something about this is welcome to join into the discussion. Yeah, I think we agree that this is a very difficult question and that we maybe join forces to try to find an answer soon. So the second question to Gülşah is how to participate in the case studies mentioned. What does it require? What are you looking for?
Yes, I just put the link to be a stakeholder for our project. So our project is now looking for some industrial stakeholders in order to identify the challenges they are facing in this transition from linear to circular system. It can be at the business level, it can be at the policy level, it can be at the at meeting the criteria, sustainability criteria level. And then we are gonna try our dashboard together with them so that we can tailor our monitoring framework and also our dashboard according to their needs and necessities. So I think it will be a two-way interaction, not only from their side to us, but we will also provide them some tools and dashboard in order to collect the feedback. So if you are interested in any of these case studies, I sincerely invite you over to be a stakeholder.
Yes, and that's so you can also always follow our projects and go and subscribe to the newsletters, because then you will be informed of everything that goes on in the project and where you can participate in. And I know that the project Bioresa, for example, also has a stakeholders platform to which you can register via the website. Okay, so the next question goes to the cluster and here especially to Luana. Do you evaluate the certifications and on all the different aspects in one? Okay, I have to restart.
Yes.
Do you evaluate the certifications on all the different aspects in one? If okay, this is a very strange question.
Missing, maybe, and yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can start answering also. Maybe Costanza, Iris can support. So basically, what we are doing in the certification scheme, we're trying to cover different aspects of the value chains as well. So different value chain steps. So we're going to have a different set of criteria. However, not all of them are applicable to all the schemes in labor, because, for example, some schemes in labor, they have a different scope. So, but my question to Teresa is, so are you interested, like I don't understand quite the second part of the question. So if you are interested, like you are interested to know which certification scheme is more suitable for you, correct? Is this one your point? Yes, okay. Yes, I mean, we are still working, now we are working on the identification of the indicators and so on, and also on the testing of indicators. Then we are also starting to work how to apply the indicators, not only on the testing phase, but to other schemes and labels. So in this case, we will also focus on this part. So how can other stakeholders or also the industry look, for example, the policymakers identify some schemes based on the criteria that you give. But we are still in the process of designing this. I don't know if Costanza, Gusa, you want to add something on this?
Maybe I can add something related to content level. So as
Yes.
Luana showed, we have also like different principles and different dimensions. So for example, in environmental dimension, there are different principles and each of them consider different criteria within them. And what we like to do with the BMS is not to just give like a single score evaluation. We want to be quite transparent in our evaluations, and also not compare CSRs with each of together in one's overall score. So we want to make it quite transparent in terms of the evaluations and in terms of the different principles. So if you are looking, for example, in terms of biodiversity performance, you are able to see kind of on that level what are the schemes that have that within its scope. And of those schemes, are they meeting those requirements, or how well are they meeting those requirements? So indeed, we are able to kind of focus on certain areas. And maybe something important to note is that as you see, there are quite a different variety of schemes and labels. So there are also like eco labels that we are evaluating. And for them, for example, some of the criteria that we have are outside their scope. So we can kind of turn off the parts of those schemes and then they are not kind of scored as low for those aspects, but they are just not scored for those aspects that are outside their scope. So in that way, we can also have an evaluation on a fair basis, let's say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much to the speakers of today's session. There is one last question, which is, would presentations be available for attendees after the webinar? Yes, they will be made available in one or the other way. Please follow, have a look at the 3CO website. You will be one of the first to know where you can have a look at them. So I would like to point out that the 3CO webinar series will go on. We don't have a specific date yet, but there will be a next one soonish. So with this, again, thank you very much to the speakers. Thank you for participating in the 3CO webinar, and thanks to the audience for listening. And I hope to see you all next time.